Of course, it takes a second for. I think we're up. There we go. Um, Hello, welcome everybody. It's been a while since I've done a live, so I thought, well, my friend here, Joe, you go by Joanne, or do you
Well,
prefer?
I go by whatever you call me. Just don't call me late for dinner. Most
Gotcha.
friends call me Joe. My clients call me Coach JJ, but you can also call me Joanne. I've gotten comfortable with that now.
Oh, that's good. Let's see. Is it going? Trying to find the live here. Da, 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 da. Well, we're up there. It's out there somewhere. Anyway, good morning, everybody. It's Monday, and I got to tell you, I was sitting in church yesterday, and as you do, I was, but I shouldn't be doing. I was browsing on my phone, and I got a message from from my friend Joanne here, and it really got to me. Can I? Do you mind if I share it?
Please, by all means.
Oh, by the way, go ahead and introduce yourself. Let me find it. Tell everybody here. This is my friend Joanne. She's a professional in the mental health game. So I'll let her introduce herself.
Hey, everybody. My name's Joanne Collins. My friends call me Joe. My clients call me Coach JJ, and I am a board certified health and wellness coach. I've been in healthcare for 28 years. I used to do nursing. I got out of that business because it's hard. I'm also a master's in public health and focus on community and behavioral health, and just trying to look for ways to help people every day to improve their health in all aspects. And I am a firm believer that when we replace I with we, even illness becomes wellness. And I have a role in helping support that with what I do.
I love that.
It's true, right?
Illness into wellness. That's beautiful.
When we replace I with we, illness becomes wellness.
Yeah.
Type it out. You'll see.
I dig it. Wait. So I got this message yesterday, and this is how it starts. Is good morning, sir. Reason why I message you, as I am in the middle of a situation where a 20-year-old boy was in a negative situation mentally, and because we can't say certain words, I keep getting. I don't know if you're aware of that. If you say stuff on live, they
Wait, do I know it?
Oh my goodness. Anyway,
I am acutely aware. Hopefully, they don't strike the word acutely.
they might. Somebody's going to get
I
offended
don't
by
think
it. Anyway, so this boy's in a bad way, and I read the poem about that you posted. 2 minutes later, he called me, telling me he was just going to walk the streets until someone offed him. He basically was going to go, hopefully, get mugged and somebody take him out. I fortunately was able to talk him into going to the hospital for treatment, and praise God, he listened and went. That poem you posted, I read to his mother, and we were both in tears. Thank you for sharing it. Now that was was that the which poem was it? I want to make
I'll
sure I'm
have
not.
to go back and look. So give me just a second to do that.
Was it the one we were talking? Was it the post I'd been talking? We were talking about earlier before we started, or was it the misfortune post?
No, it was the one. It was the one that I was talking about when we first got started here. I'm trying to see if I can
Oh,
find it.
the one it was my friend Bryce Prescott posted
It
it.
was really long.
Yeah, it was really long. He was talking about his friend who was basically was I'm doing it. I'm going to take myself out, and he was going through doing the whole goodbye victory lap, I guess. He was just letting everybody know, hey, I'm done. By the time you read this, it's going to be over. There's nothing you can do. Thank you, blah, blah, blah. And it turns out that he tried to do it, and the gun wouldn't go off. The gun didn't work.
Yeah.
And so he took it as a sign. And then, you know, I ended up talking to my friend Bryce, and yeah, that was a pretty powerful post. I remember when I first read it, it really got me, because I've had a lot of people who've reached out to me, you know, who have been in that situation where they've wanted to take themselves out. And you know, it's a really tough thing to deal with, because one, you don't know what to say. You know, they've heard everything. You know, hey, just cheer up, you'll be all right, and all that kind of stuff. You know, and none of that works, and you don't know what to say.
And sometimes they hear, well, it's your fault because you put your life in a bad situation. It's your fault that you're like this. And it's like, whoa. And there's, you know, the healthcare community, unfortunately, they're not doing a fantastic job of addressing this, you know. And like you're saying, you know, they hear from the friends and the family, oh, we love you. Oh, your life is worth saving. Why would you want to do this? And so on and so forth. And there's a lot of missing pieces and parts.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, and you know, one thing I find is that instead of trying to say something, I just start asking questions. You know?
Yes.
Because what they want isn't for you to lecture them and tell them how they're wrong and all that. They don't want to hear that. What they need is to be heard. But a lot of times they don't know what to say. They're not even sure themselves. They're overwhelmed by this, and they just can't shake this feeling. And once that thought gets in their head, they just can't get rid of it. And so by asking questions about how they're feeling and what they're going through and what they're experiencing, a lot of times that just gets them through it, you know?
Yes.
They already know what they need to hear. They just need to hear it from them, you know?
That's the whole thing. That's one of the reasons why asking more questions than throwing advice out there is so important, because you can sit here and think about all the rational reasons that somebody might, you know, think this way or that way, and it might, you know, become apparent to you and make sense to you. The other person has to have that click. And if you're telling them a whole bunch of stuff when they're in that kind of irrational state, they can't understand what you're getting at. If you ask questions and they get to hear themselves out loud say the answers, then that helps them come up with the solution, or at least started on a path for a solution.
It gets them thinking about it. It gets them to to kind of go through all their thoughts and try to pinpoint, because there a lot of depression is caused by certain ways of thinking or ways that they're dealing with things. And in some ways, depression, you know, we often look at it that it's a negative thing, but depression is a way of your subconscious trying to communicate with you that there's something you're not dealing with. I mean, depression really isn't, you aren't broken. You're actually just, you're healing, and your brain's trying to help you heal. But we haven't been taught that. We've been taught that, oh, it's a terrible thing, you got to avoid it. Here's drugs and all this stuff. It's like, no, your brain is trying to tell you that there's a problem and you need to address it. And it's trying to show you what you need to do that. But we're set up to not pay attention to that sort of stuff, where it's like, oh no, I'm broken. There's the problem. I got to throw drugs and pills and whatever.
You just hit on a point that I wanted to make so bad. And it's going to sound like it doesn't make sense at first, but it's all about nutrition. nutrition is not just what you put in your mouth, although that's a very big component. It's also what you're looking at, what you're listening to, and the environment around you. It's all what you're feeding yourself, because we have multiple places of inputs as human beings. We don't just eat. We watch, we listen, we touch, we feel around us, all those kinds of things. And what I'm seeing is this strange phenomenon where, mental health has always sort of had a stigma, right? And I know that you're certainly old enough to remember this. I certainly am. That, you're crazy. You're going off to the psych ward. You're going to the mental institution. We're going to just pump you full of drugs and you're just going to be doped out and you're going to sit there coloring with crayons in the psych ward. We've seen this in a bunch of movies and things like that. Jim Carrey is one of them that did that. Robin Williams did it. There's a bunch of other people that done that. And so that's the picture that's portrayed. Oh, you have a mental health problem. Boop. We're going to put you in jail, put you in a robe, and, we're
going to separate you from the rest of society.
Yeah. And so there was a stigma that developed around mental illness, so that people became really afraid of saying, hey, wait a minute, I don't know that I'm right in the head right now. I'm thinking some really crazy stuff or feeling a certain type of way. Now we almost have a fetishization of being labeled with a mental health illness. So now, and I see this especially in the younger population, and I'm here to tell you, my own children, I have identical twins, and I've gone through it with them, still working through it. Well, I'm autistic. I have major depressive disorder. I think I'm bipolar. I might be schizophrenic. Well, who the hell told you that? Pardon my French. Sorry. Who told you that? Well, I was watching a gamer on YouTube, and I was on this game thing, and they said this, and it describes me. And I'm like, no. You're not qualified psychiatrist, psychologist, neurologist, or any of the other specialties to be able to make that determination. And I doubt you 15-year-old kids have actually read a clinical psychology textbook. So what is going on here? And it's a very strange phenomenon. And one of the things,
it's like this, it's this pendulum swing, because it's like, our generation, we grew up that it was stigmatized that, you didn't want to have a mental disability. You didn't want.
Aunt Maisie had to go away, You
hid it. You didn't want people to know about it. It was an embarrassment, which was wrong. I mean, it was like, no, we shouldn't have treated it that way. And so we tried to make a course correction and say, look, we need to eliminate these stigmas. Just because you have a mental disorder doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're a bad character. It doesn't mean that you're a danger. It just, all that. And so then we started saying, when people that come out and admit to their problems and get help, they're heroes. And we're happy, which we are. We're happy that they're getting help. And it's like, yes, we want to eliminate that stigma. But what's happened is now it's become from stigmatized to that it's like fetishized. Now it's glorified.
Glorification. Yes.
Yeah, it's like part of your personality is what disorder do you have, and it's the strangest thing because they openly talk about it. I've got OCD and bipolar disorder, and they start listing all that. They start listing everything from the DSM-5 that they could possibly apply to themselves. It's like, here's all my problems. It's like, no, you none of this applies to anything you're talking about.
And I'm hearing a bunch of stuff that I'm like, okay, that isn't even in the DSM-5. I'm very familiar with the DSM-5. And I'm like, Okay, no, I need to have a peer-to-peer conversation with the physician that or scientist that came up with that, because that, like, no, I'm sorry, that no. And I've been in the game for a long time as far as this stuff goes. But one of the things that I found interesting, as a public health researcher, is that there is a very strong correlation to this rise in mental health issues with the way that our nutrition with the food and the social media and all that stuff is going.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of this stuff is a biochemical imbalance. And so there's the saying, feelings are not facts. And I will correct that and say, your feelings are facts. Your thoughts necessarily aren't. Or, yeah, that's what I meant to say. Because the way you feel is all biochemical. It's directly related to the neurotransmitters that your brain and your guts are producing based on your exposures, the air you breathe, the water you drink, the food you put in your mouth, the medicines that you take, but also the social media, gaming, shopping, all those things. If you think about all those things can be be considered vices if you add the word aholic to the end of them. So people say, I'm a chocoholic, I'm a shopaholic, I'm a gameaholic, I'm a workaholic. These are biochemical functions that are happening. And if we can adjust our biochemicals in our body, then we can start to solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And, these things. So, for example, and I'm sure people have heard this, point this out again. You post something on Facebook, and then you be checking your phone every 2 minutes. Like, did anybody see that yet? Do they like it yet? Do they like it? Oh my God, what did they say? Did they give me a laughy? Did they give me a smiley? Did they give me a heart or whatever? And every time we do that, our brain gets a hit of dopamine.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do that too much, our brain wants more and more and more dopamine. And it's the same thing with smoking cigarettes. And it's the same thing with, doing illicit drugs. It's the same thing with, buying things on Amazon and gambling on the play poker on your phone at 2:00 in the morning. It really ultimately results in the same biochemical effects. This has a lot to do, though, with the food that we actually put in our mouth. And what I'm seeing is that kids from even my generation, when we're eating white bread and bologna sandwiches and sucking on popsicles and drinking Kool-Aid all day long, lots of the people in my peer group that I grew up with have metabolic syndrome. They suffer from depression, anxiety, drug abuse, thoughts of self-harm, and things like that. And it's a big deal. And people are not educated about what they're getting. And then on top of that, we have a society of instant gratification and convenience. And you can see that that was demonstrated by this whole silly thing that we just went through over the last couple of years. I'm not going to say its name. Y'all know what I'm talking about. What happened? Instacart. It's in the name, Instacart, right? And then we have DoorDash, and we have Grubhub and Uber Eats. And so there's this culture of instant gratification, and the economy has certainly allowed that to happen. And while those things are good sometimes, we now have people doing that all the time. Well, are you checking the ingredients label of the food that you're getting from the Uber Eats or the Instacart or the whatever? Probably not. And a lot of those chemicals are being fed to kids and really to everybody. And they have the capacity to affect the way our bodies work and therefore cause this biochemical imbalance. And the more we seek those things, the more off balance our biochemistry becomes.
I totally agree with that. So the question is then, what do we do? How do we get ourselves away from all of this stuff? What's the steps? I mean, what's the steps? If you were to lay out a plan and you say, here's what you do, what is that plan?
The first thing that I would tell people to do is to start paying attention to how they feel after they eat stuff. You got to kind of put on a detective hat with yourself. And you have to think about, okay, all right, my body is just craving this bag of Lay's potato chips, and I can't resist the urge. I have to do it. So you got to pay attention to, okay, what do you think could be driving that? Are you bored? Are you lonely? Do you need connection with somebody else? Are you tired? Have you had enough water or, whatever? So you have to pay attention to what starts that thought process or that feeling in you. Then you got to pay attention to what happens a couple of hours after you eat that food. Because in a lot of cases that I've seen with the clients that I've worked with, and I've watched this with my own children, you go for that delectable, delicious thing that you're going to eat. You eat it. You feel really good for like an hour or two after. And then after that, you start to tank. You might feel extra tired. You might you might get moody. You might want to go pick a fight with your husband or your kid or your parent or whoever. For just one little thing just sets you off. You got to start paying attention to that and developing kind of that self-awareness. So that's step one. Step two, you got to start paying attention to the nutrition labels on the foods that you buy. And I'm happy to send a couple of lists of things that I found in my research that people can easily print out and put up in their kitchen so they can compare what they're buying and get rid of this stuff. Sugar is a big driver of this. It's not the only thing, but it's huge. And most people,
everything.
It is in everything. Like tomato sauce. It's in it. Like, how would you put high fructose corn syrup in tomato sauce? And there are 61 different names for sugar. And
61?
most people,
I didn't realize there was that many.
Yeah. And they've come up with all kinds of creative names for them to make it sound like it's healthy. But it's hidden in everything. And I'm not saying that sugar is absolutely terrible and nobody should ever have it, but we are consuming too much. Stuff with sugar in it should be more like a dessert. It should not be for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. And that's what we have going on. And so now we have a population of people my age and people your age that have developed metabolic syndrome. They eat the bowl of Captain Crunch in the morning with the milk, and then they have orange juice with it. And then they're eating, the snack bar, Fig Newtons or whatever it is for a snack. And then they're eating a ham and cheese sandwich and chips and stuff, and then a Coke for lunch. And then they come home and eat pasta with bread for dinner, and then they have ice cream. So it's like constant,
And
like
sugar and everything, every bit of it. I mean,
all this.
even milk. I didn't realize this as a kid growing up that pasteurized milk has a lot of sugar in it. I had no
It,
idea.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, and well, yeah, I was diagnosed diabetic in 2012, and so I had to make a lot of changes in my diet. And so I, started cutting out sugar, and so I started paying attention to labels and all that kind of stuff, and looking for the sugar. And I was just amazed. I mean, I remember, I was looking to go into the paleo or keto. Back then, it was the big thing was Atkins, which is basically just keto. But
Oh, and South Beach too. Don't forget them.
yeah, South Beach,
Yeah.
and it was mostly proteins. And so I started, I'd go and get like for snacks, I was getting beef jerky, and I didn't even think about it. I was like, oh, it's just dried beef. There's that. Well, that's there shouldn't be a problem with this. But I would get these huge spikes in my sugar, and I'm like, and so I finally looked at the packaging, and I'm going, the two top ingredients, beef and sugar. They use sugar to process the jerky, and then that was the thing that opened my eyes to where sugar is everywhere. And so I started looking more and more intently at what was going on with food, and it was like it is in everything. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you a secret about that. Do you know why they use sugar in the jerky?
Why is that?
Because sugar is actually what we call a desiccant. It breaks stuff down and makes it more like malleable.
Oh, so it softens it up.
It softens it up and makes it like dry out.
Ah.
And this is one of the reasons why in diabetes, having that high circulating blood sugar all the time ends up eating at the inside lining of your blood vessels and your intestines.
And it's because it's basically drying it up.
Essentially, yeah. I mean, this is, so think about it like this. I'm sure you and probably a lot of the viewers have seen the experiment where they take an egg and they drop it in a cup of Coca-Cola, or they take Coca-Cola and pour it on the hood of a car, and the Coca-Cola will eat a hole inside that eggshell, and it will eat the paint off a car. Regular standard carbonation doesn't do that. Caramel coloring in of itself cannot do that. One thing, sugar.
Sugar. Ah.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't made the connection on that one.
Mm-hmm. That's the whole thing. And so this is why people end up with like cardiovascular problems, blood clots and strokes and things like that, is because this circulating sugar just...
You're basically ingesting desiccant into your system.
Essentially.
That explains why when you're diabetic, you're thirsty all the time.
Well, and there's a bunch of things that go... Thirsty all the time, peeing all the time, hungry all the time. And that's because the circulating sugar can't be controlled because there's too much of it for most people. Some people don't have the insulin. That's a whole nother topic. But so your cells can't absorb the nutrients that are meant to get into you. And then your body says, well, I can't even take in water at this point, so I'm thirsty. And then your kidneys are going, oh my God, there's so much sugar in here, I have to get it out. Pee. So that kind of explains that part about diabetes. But the whole thing with the nutrition part, as far as this goes, is that having that excessive level of sugar causes your body to, if you're still producing insulin, causes your body to have an overproduction of insulin. That overproduction of insulin starts a cascade of chemicals that are inflammatory. So you now have a situation where you have inflammatory chemicals also circulating through your bloodstream. Guess what those things affect? Your brain.
Oh,
And
your brain is the biggest consumer of sugar, and there's all kinds of links to Alzheimer's because of basically sugar.
they are now calling Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes.
Yeah, I was about to mention that. Yeah.
See, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
So you have this brain inflammation because you constantly have this, sugar that's in everything, and also the chemical additives. And there's a whole long list of them. And I've got that for you so you can send out to people if they want it. All those things, guess what? They cause an imbalance in the epinephrine, adrenaline, cortisol, serotonin, and dopamine. And when those chemicals get imbalanced, they will change your perception. So you can, if you have that, you can go from, like, I come up to you and I say, "Hi, it's great to see you today." You can, on the one hand, be like, "That's really nice. I'm glad to see you too." Or you can be like, "That was mean. I didn't like the way they looked at me. That was crazy. Ooh, I'm a terrible person."
Mm-hmm.
It really can impact your thoughts and feelings in that fashion. And if that happens for a long enough period of time, you're going to get yourself into a state of serious mental health issues. And I do want to point out that May is Mental Health Month. So that's one of the reasons why I'm extra glad that we're having this conversation today.
Yay.
Yeah. So we got to control the inflammation. Well, how do we do that? Well, we have to start with diet. And all of the physicians that I've spent hundreds of hours listening to lectures from basically say you can't out-medicate, you can't outrun, you can't outthink a bad diet. And so, going back to the steps, you've got to start paying attention to what you're putting in your body. Third thing is that you should find somebody that you're really close to, that you trust implicitly. And just about everybody has somebody like that in their life. And talk to them and say, "You know what? If I ever get to telling you that I'm feeling a certain type of way, you're going to extra check in on me, and you're going to ask questions like you brought up in the beginning. Start asking questions and be willing to talk with them about that." Mm-hmm. And one of the things I find disturbing is that, the second anybody shows up at their doctor, the doctor's like, "Oh, here's this Prozac, here's this, all these medications." Well, lo and behold, just a few days ago, there was a research study published demonstrating that these medications are actually doing more harm than good. And I actually got to witness that firsthand with my own children. Mm-hmm. And I'll circle back around a little bit with this. We had a very traumatic situation in our house. We actually lost our home. Our home was infested with mold, and the landlords did not want to fix it. Their choice was to tell us to leave. At the same time, my children's grandfather was dying. He was on hospice care, and we were having to take care of him constantly. So we lost our home. We were exposed to mold, and we're, having to take care of grandpa on hospice. All super traumatic situations, especially for kids, right? Well, during that period of time, we were trying to figure out how to relocate and stuff. Guess what happened? Bags of chips. Here's McDonald's. Here's Kentucky Fried Chicken, because we're too tired. We can't cook. We can't. Here's all the stuff. If you shut up, I'll get you candy. All right, no problem. And their mental health declined to the point where I had to send them to a crisis center for treatment. And I won't get into the details of what happened because I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but it was really bad. As soon as we got back into a stable living situation where I could go back to cooking whole natural foods, like I buy the whole food from the store, I chop it up, I cook it myself. There's no added chemicals. I don't consider garlic and paprika chemicals. You know what I'm saying? As soon as I started doing that, everything changed. Their mood's better. They're learning and growing. They're having wonderful conversations with me, and we're building relationship, like a better relationship. So I've watched it in real time, and I really want everybody to just pay attention to what you're putting in, and not just the food, also the social media and other stuff. Think about it like this. You wake up in the morning, your first thought is, ugh, I got to get up to go to work. What do? You go get your coffee or tea or whatever that you're fixing to put a bunch of sugar in. Then you're going to eat a carbohydrate loaded breakfast because you got to have something. And then you're also watching the news and listening to the stories about all the crimes that were committed in your neighborhood and wherever, and all the crazy stuff going on in the world, and the politics and all the stuff. And then you're stuck in traffic. And then you got to go to work with stupid people. You don't know because they won't listen because they can't listen because they're too stupid to listen, right? And then you get told at work that you're like you can't have your lunch, or you figured out that you forgot your lunch at home, so you have to go to the vending machine. What's there? Bunch of junk food. But you got to have something because you feel like you're gonna fall out. And then you got to go get back on the phone, talk to people all day long that stress you out. Then you got to be in traffic again, and then you're like, well, I have to go get dinner from the grocery store. When that happens to you and it's like 7:00 at night and you've been going for 12 hours, you are not going to be inclined to get, the whole scratch foods stuff because it might take 2 hours to make the dinner. And this is a conundrum I see with a lot of people. And this is where you have to prioritize what's going on. Stop watching crap news. And if you got toxic friends on your Facebook feed that you wake up and look at their posts at 6:00 in the morning, stop doing that too. Cut off the limits. Choose what media you're going to consume, because a lot of that will also influence your choices over the course of the day.
Well, that's what inspired me partially to change my social media.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at how I would, I felt like I was a comedian. I'm always making fun of what's going on in the world. And I saw that I was kind of going the negative route, and I got to the point where I thought, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be a part of the problem. Because, and the people will have this attitude, well, you got to fight the good fight. And I'm just like, there's different ways to fight for things.
Most definitely.
You can either tear things down or you could build things up. You could, and I thought, I want to be one that builds people up. I want to focus on that. And so I just changed. I thought, I'm not doing anything negative. I'm not fighting. I'm not getting into politics. I just want to give people something positive every day that, if I pop up in your feed, I want to share something with you that's going to make you feel better. Even if it's a sad story, I still want it to have, a positive message, because I don't think being sad isn't a horrible thing. Being depressed isn't a horrible thing. It's part of the human experience. Yes. We learn from it. But just showing that, look, and the whole thing where we're going through that whole nonsense and what we're going on through now, I see people always posting, it's the end of the world, it's the apocalypse, we're headed to the new world order, we're going to be a one world totalitarian dictatorship, but falling into this, getting into this thing, which all may be true. but there's no reason to destroy your life.
Well, it's like, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to. That's one of the basic tenet of Stoicism that I love to preach, is that what ultimately can you do about it? Then if you can do something about it, then do something about it. If you can't, then move on. And it's not about ignoring things. It's about giving things the proper amount of attention. I mean, sure, there's terrible, horrible things going on in the world, but can you do anything about them? Is there something you can do? Well, you have kids. There's children in your own house. What are you doing to take care of them?
Thank you.
What about your family, your friends?
People that are right in front of you.
Yeah.
You're unhappy. What's going on in your specific community? Do not worry about people in like 27,000 miles away. Have compassion for them and whatever plight that they're experiencing, but unless you're, some kind of muckety muck, uppity schmuck, working for the government or the UN or whatever, there is not a whole lot that you are going to do. You probably got $50 in your bank account. You don't have millions of dollars to work with, and you don't have the platform. Let them do what they do, because ultimately, my personal opinion, it's all a dog and pony show.
Oh, absolutely.
Let us worry about what's above us.
Well, fear is a big driving factor in everything, and that's one thing that they've learned is they get votes, they get support if they put fear. Oh no, we're all going to die if we don't stop this. Everything's going to get worse. The only way to solve the problem, we have to solve it now. We have to take drastic measures. You have to give me more power and control. And that's how they get their grip on us. And so that's why it's so effective, is they're constantly pushing this fear. You're getting your fear. And then to make us feel better, they feed us sugar because it,
they feed you sugar, they give you pills, and they give you shots.
Yeah.
And then happy commercial about how everybody's life is fantastic. And you're like looking at it like a, commercial for, we'll throw Cialis out there. You could be happy, and look, you'll like be a pretty person, and you'll be like hanging out in the bathtub, like looking at the skyline or something of the mountains. That's not. They're painting pictures of things that are not reality, and distracting us from focusing on what's actually in front of us. And I think that is actually the most important part of my spiel, is that focus on what's exactly in front of you. And you know what's exactly in front of you? This screen.
And you have complete control over what goes over your screen. You can block people. You can, I block people all the time. I have people that start ripping on me for I can't even explain. I did a post where it was National Nurses Day. And I just did a post saying, thank you, nurses, for helping us not die. That was it. It was just a silly video. Yeah, it was just a silly video. Nothing. And I got hate mail. I had people got mad at me saying, oh, they're a part of the problem, blah, blah, blah. And, and I'm like, this is insane. All I did was thank people for doing a good job. And I'm like, this is crazy.
And see, when I see stuff like that, this is where I say, hey, I think you might need to check your blood sugar. I think it's affecting your mental state right now.
Well, I find I just don't argue with people. People try to fight with me on the weirdest things, and it's just funny to me. Well, one thing I learned a long time ago was I'd heard this once, was don't fight with a fool, because they'll drag you down to their level and beat you with experience. And it's like, just if somebody wants to try to start a fight with me on something online, I just agree with them and move on with my life.
I found that I was much happier once I stopped trying to argue with people at the Department of Health and Human Services and the CDC. Because I was really like I was like, "You're wrong. The data doesn't show this." And I would get so mad, and my husband would be like, "Why are you wasting your time?" And that was before my husband got on Facebook. Check this out. My husband finally decided to get on Facebook. This was several years ago, but he hadn't been on Facebook, and I'd be on Facebook and I'd be ranting and raving and I'm mad. I'm gonna keyboard warrior you know, all that stuff. And he'd hear me ranting and talking. And he'd be like, "Why do you waste your time with any of that?" He got on Facebook. he got suspended a week after he got in there because he couldn't stop arguing with people. And I was like, see, bro, see.
There you go.
And now I'm just like, no. If you don't like it, scroll on.
If you don't see it the way I see it, that's fine. I get no judgment. You do what you do, and I'll move on. Well, I like posting comments or posting quotes from philosophers.
I love those. Keep them
coming. I get people who say, "This guy's an idiot," and I'm going, "What? Plato? What are you talking about?
For real?
You seriously want to?" I mean, it would be just a sort of silly and innocuous, nothing quote, but people want to take umbrage to it. Well, it's like when I tell people that you have control over your brain, you have control over your subconscious. And when you finally realize you have control and that there are things that you can do to take control, you can make your life better. And I have people that just throw a freaking fit about that whole idea.
I know. It all goes back to that.
They don't want to surrender that. They want to hold on to the fact that they have no control in their life.
You just touch on a beautiful point. All goes back to that awareness, because once you are aware something is a problem, you then have the responsibility to fix it. And a lot of people not ready to pay up, not ready to pay the Pied Piper.
Yeah.
They don't want to. They're content to live in oblivion.
Yeah, I've mentioned this many times that often we want to say things are more difficult than they are, because then that gives us the excuse not to pursue them.
Exactly.
Once you eliminate that idea that when the idea of I hate the word impossible. I think it's a horrible word. And it applies to certain things, absolutely, but most of the things we apply it to are ridiculous.
I think Einstein actually said most things are not impossible, just improbable.
Yes.
Which lends itself to, it's not that it can't happen, it's just we can't conceptualize the fact that it will happen. Yeah.
But yeah, I had a conversation with a new friend not too long ago in a restaurant in Vegas, and we were talking about the subconscious. And his problem, he was saying, he says, I have these tendencies where I kind of a lot of self-defeating behaviors, and when I remember just saying, well, when you realize that you're allowing yourself to accept those things because it's getting you off the hook of not being responsible for them. Mm-hmm. When you finally realize that that's what's happening, then you can start to correct the problem, because for some reason you've decided that you accept that as your reality. And you want your subconscious, this weird part of you that hates you, to be in charge. And your subconscious doesn't hate you. Your subconscious has absolutely no thought about that at all. Your subconscious is just a program that you're in charge of. Mm-hmm. And when you finally realize that you're in charge of the programming, and like they say in programming, garbage in, garbage out.
Yes.
What you put in is what is going to create. So if you're constantly telling yourself, I don't deserve this, or I'm not that smart, or whatever, then your subconscious, its job is to prove you correct. And so it's going to go, yeah, we're a complete failure. Look at this, look at this, look at this. We're a complete failure. It's doing its job. When you change its job and say, hey, we're successful, we're happy, we have everything we need, we have money when we need it, you start saying these things, your brain goes, oh, hey, look at all this cool stuff we got. We got a lot of cool stuff. We're doing all right. And then it's an amazing change. But for whatever reason, we get addicted to being depressed. We get addicted to feeling miserable. And I've seen people who just like being miserable. And it's a weird thing, but it's them. It's what they want to do. And I think getting people to realize that that's what they're doing, it's like you say, it comes back to awareness. When you go, I'm doing this to myself. I'm forcing myself to be miserable.
It's awareness. And then also comes back to that brain biochemistry, because there's a payoff for that attitude or behavior. Oh, woe is me. I feel miserable. I feel lonely. They post that on their Facebook page or their Instagram or the TikTok. All this stuff. And then 27 people hit that like button or that care button or that and comment, oh, I'm so sorry you feel this way. And so there's they get it. That gives them a dopamine hit because they're getting attention. And what I would love to try to encourage people to like be enough for yourself. I think there's a little more into that, and that kind of dives into the metaphysical and like spiritual stuff, which is a big factor for me. But you're totally right. Some people just are kind of addicted, like stuck in that cycle of just negativity and just being down on themselves. And then, like you said, with the brain, there's the hippocampus and the amygdala and few other little organs inside the brain that after enough of that, they get hardwired to where it's just like, that's all they know. And it takes a lot to get a person out of it, but awareness is the first step. And one of the things that helped me big time is when I would think to myself negative thoughts. Well, that was stupid. You're a bleepity bleep bleep bleep, because I can cuss myself out all day long. When I said, okay, every time you catch yourself talking in negative language to yourself inside your head, reverse it. Say to yourself immediately the polar opposite. You suck. You're horrible. I am learning and I'm growing and people love me. I am just a horrible failure. I am enough exactly as I am in this moment. When I started actively making myself do that, and I've tested it on my clients, tested it on my children too. When you start actively like replacing all of those negative words and negative thoughts with the reverse opposite, holy cow. Because that builds self-confidence, which then influences your behavior.
Yep.
Your thoughts influence your behavior, and then your behavior influences what you get back. Like I'm sure you've heard a lot about like people talking about like manifesting. Well, I just, and some people have just done it a total disservice because they're like, oh, well, I'm going to manifest a mansion and a handsome man and $1 million and Lamborghinis. No. That's not how it works.
They turned it into some magic trick. And it's like, no, you're missing the whole point.
Missing the whole point. Just like you said before, garbage in, garbage out, right? What you put out is what you get back. How does that start? It starts with your thoughts and it starts with your feelings. If you just change the language a little bit, you can influence those thoughts. And over time, that will influence your behavior. So you're making better choices. You're responding better to people. And when you do that, you're going to get the reward that comes from doing that extra work.
Mm-hmm. It's really about putting yourself in a position to make better choices and put yourself into better situations because you're mentally ready for it. If you're constantly negative and putting yourself down or thinking things aren't going to work out, when you're constantly thinking that way, then you physically will put yourself in a position to accept that reality.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's not like this, like I said, it's not these magical powers that you have. It's like, oh, I'm just going to manifest this and it's going to happen. No, what you're manifesting is the idea that you are worthy of these things. You know, one of my things that I dislike about the self-help industry is that it's always preaching, here's how you improve, here's how you get better, here's how you overcome all your problems. And it's like, that's the wrong message, because what they're saying is you're broken and you need to be fixed. My message is you're not broken at all. You could become a better version of yourself, but you're actually pretty amazing already. You just need to accept it and realize it. When you start to see how amazing you are, all these other things are going to happen anyway.
Absolutely. In the words of one of my favorite singers, Jewel Kilcher, these hands are my own, and I am never broken. And in the end, only kindness matters.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty profound and true.
Yeah, very true. Very true. We just got to learn how to be kind to ourselves.
That's where it starts. You cannot love, you cannot be kind, you cannot be compassionate to other people in the world out there if you don't first have that with yourself.
Well, I like to say that, I like to tell people, the things you tell yourself, would you ever tell that to a friend? Say that about them? And they're like, oh no. And I said, well, why can't you just be your best friend? You know, if your friend came to you and they were depressed and they had all these problems, would you sit there and go, well, you know, you're an idiot, you don't deserve this, you sleep in too late all the time, you eat bad food, you're a horrible, rotten person, no one really likes you? Would you ever say that to somebody you care about? No, because it's not true. But you'll sit there and say that to yourself?
I know. We treat ourselves terribly.
When you learn to stop saying that kind of stuff, when you learn, hey, treat yourself as a friend in need who's coming to you for help.
Yeah.
What do you say to that person? Well, that's what you should be saying to yourself.
Exactly. And I would encourage people, as you know, like another tip strategy, if you find yourself constantly thinking negatively and things like that, do that opposite thinking, do that, you know, put yourself in the, well, I'm talking to my friend. How would I talk to my friend if they said they felt the same way? Write that stuff down. Put it where you can see it. Put it on your fridge. Put it on the bathroom mirror. Put it on the steering wheel of your car. Put it in places where you can see, because that is going to help you develop the habit of talking to yourself in a more positive way. And I'm here to tell you, if you do that for 30 days, holy cow, you will see such a big improvement. You will not even be able to believe it. And doors will start opening for you. You will start getting clarity. People will start treating you better. You will start feeling better. I've done it. It works.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, one thing also is, if you've got a lot of negative thoughts, start changing your thoughts. Start thinking more positive things. Like, that's exactly what you're saying. Is basically you're just reprogramming yourself by giving yourself new thoughts, better thoughts. And, you know, and ways to do that is go and you know, get a book of inspirational quotes and just read a couple every morning. The Bible, the scriptures. You know, it's amazing what you can do. Just open up the Bible. Here's a book that's dedicated to you and your spirituality, and and why not have that connection to something so amazing? Why not open yourself up to God? If you already believe in God and you really believe in God, then why aren't you really going through on the steps of really getting close to God? You know, is God really something you believe in, or is it just something you hope to believe in? If you really believe, you want to believe, go all in on God. If you don't believe in God, then open yourself up to the universe or whatever you want.
You've got generally something else. So
something beside yourself, something, a higher power, a greater authority, something bigger than yourself.
You really do have to have that. I think. Now, I know there are people out there that would disagree, but I think it's critical to have a relationship with some kind of higher power, some kind of, guide, because, okay, you're here. How'd you get here? Well, something greater than you created that in some form or fashion. Doesn't matter what kind of division of science you want to believe in. You are not here just because. You're here for a reason. And I really feel like people need to tap more into that. One of the things that I started doing is I started reading the book of Proverbs and the chapter for the day of the month. And that was taught to me by one of the physicians that I worked for as his nurse. And I was like, holy cow, every time I find something useful in what I read for that day, that actually applies to that day or the situation that I'm going through. And so, it could be Bible, it could be Talmud, it could be Quran, it could be the Tao Te Ching, whatever, like sort of book like that you might enjoy, try that. Pick a chapter for the day and read it, because it's probably going to offer you some valuable information to help you change your mindset. If you can change your mindset and get in more positive thinking, then you're going to develop further awareness. And then you can start addressing the stuff like nutrition and start paying better attention to that, which is only going to further help you improve your overall health. Because health is... Go ahead.
One thing, when you're going into health, when I started trying to take better care of myself, instead of telling myself, well, I can't eat that, I can't eat that, I can't eat that. What I did was I changed, and instead of thinking that way, I started thinking, I do eat this, I do eat that. So I started focusing on what I can eat. So when I get up and I start thinking about foods that I want to eat, I'm not thinking about, cookies and cake and Kentucky Fried Chicken and all that stuff. Instead, I'm getting up and thinking about, eating nuts and eating fresh vegetables. That's what I'm focused on. I'm focusing on good things that I'm going to do. Because if you focus on things you're not going to do, your brain doesn't understand that. What it understands is doing things. So when you say, I'm not going to eat this, your brain's going, oh, we're looking for that. We're looking for a Coke. Where's a Coke? Let's get a Coke. Let's have a Coke. But instead, if you're thinking, I'm drinking fresh water today, I'm going to eat almonds. When you start thinking that way, that's what your brain starts thinking about and thinking for. So it's and this is where I tell people, when you're thinking positively, it just doesn't mean, oh, hey, Pollyanna, everything's going to be perfect. Woo!
Right.
No,
Right.
It means that you're thinking in a way that is creative and improves your situation.
Mm-hmm.
You're not you're not looking at, like I said, you're not looking at things I don't want to eat. You're looking at things you do want.
Yeah.
And when you think that way, then you have abundance. Like, oh man, I've got everything I want. It's right here in front of me. I have what I need. I have what I want. It's all right here. I'm not fighting for any of this.
Yes.
It changes you. It just totally changes you. And just
I hope
what's really fun is when people see this, when they start changing their life and they start making those positive affirmations, they start making those positive changes, and you see them do it in their life. It's so amazing.
It is the most gratifying thing in the world to be able to watch. And I'm very lucky that I've had the privilege of being able to watch that for quite a number of people. It's like, it's a gift to be able to see it. And it's just amazing, the transformations that you can see. I mean, you'll see people that will lose 100 pounds. You'll see people that go from living on the streets to having like a super decent job. And nice house and, developing relationships. It's just a beautiful thing to watch. But it all starts with that mindset stuff and thinking about, instead of thinking about what you can't do, instead of thinking about the limitations, what do I have? What tools do I have at my disposal? What can I do with them? And then go forward.
And realizing that you have a lot more than you ever thought.
And there's a reason why we're all here. It wasn't just to be blobs that stuff our faces with Doritos and Cheetos and
yes.
And whatever. We have purpose. There's a reason why we're here. We all have a purpose, and we have to figure out what that is. It starts with awareness and taking care of our body.
And I tell people, whether you believe in God or you don't, ultimately purpose is the same thing. Because if you believe in God, then God has created a world for us to come here and have this experience and create and involve ourselves and learn. God has given us this great opportunity for you to create your own life.
Yes.
Now, if you don't want to believe in God and you think that we're just a big happy accident, nothing changes in that regard. Whether you believe we're God, in creations, or we're just a happy accident, we're here by a complete miracle. We're here and we have this experience. We're only here for a short period of time in the big scheme of things. Why waste it doing stupid things? Why waste it being miserable? Why not just open yourself up to possibilities and opportunities and just enjoy it and create the life that you want to live? That's the blessing. That's the beautiful gift that we've been given. Whether you think it's a happy accident or a gift from God, you've been given something beautiful. Do something with it.
Absolutely. And, I have, and I especially find this with gentlemen that I talk to. Well, I don't know what's going on. I'm just here. Well, if that's what you want to think about, and that's what you're going to get. But I'm fairly certain you have some skills and some talents. Well, I like to fish. Okay, go fishing, catch fish, feed yourself, teach other people how to fish, do something with it. You were not meant to be here just to sit around and just be, nothing. And I once again, in the work that I've done with people, I find that once I can help them figure out what their purpose is, and sometimes it takes a lot of work to do that, but once you figure that out, fly off like a rocket and all kinds of things will happen for you.
Yeah.
So I feel like I've been rambling. Sorry.
No, this has been good. We've been, oh, wow, an hour. That went quick. No, thank you. When I saw your message yesterday, and it just really got to me. You never know how your actions are going to affect others. And when you realize that they do, it helps you kind of get focused. It helps you really kind of pull yourself together and go, hey, I do matter. What I do does matter. And it can have a good effect on other people, or it can have a negative effect. And when you fully understand that, you realize that you are part of all this. You aren't just another.
You're not just a cog in the wheel.
Cog in the wheel. You're a part of all this. You're in it with us.
Your involvement directly affects the mechanics of how the universe operates.
Yes. I mean, you might just be making a comment on the thread here, and you may not think anybody will see it, but somebody might read it, and you might say something that really changes their day, makes them feel better, makes them think about something they hadn't thought about.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we can all do that. Well, you got things to do. Yeah, are you working today?
yes and no. I am actually working on finishing up my book.
Oh, awesome. What's
Yeah,
your book about?
I'm writing a book called the Diabetes 101 Playbook for Beginners, basically for people who are newly diagnosed. And I'm going to have all of the things that your
Oh,
doctor don't have time to tell you, all the charts, lists, all the things.
well, yeah,
I'm sorry, go
that's
ahead.
I got to tell you, my experience when I first got diagnosed, I had experience. My father had diabetes, and this is what he died from was diabetes and heart failure.
Mm.
Um, at 54, he
Oh,
died. Now this is where it's hitting me because I'm 53. I turned 54 in less than a month. So this is weighing heavily on my mind right now because it's you know. Um, but one thing I noticed was everything that was put out by the Diabetes Association and the doctors and everything. They don't tell you how to cure diabetes. They don't tell
nope.
you how to stop being diabetic because it's a condition. It's not. It's not really a disease. It's a condition, and it's a condition that you can overcome. Um, um, but they don't tell you how to. They don't really even mention. I remember going through the whole thing that the doctor gave me, this little pamphlet. Not once, not one single time in this pamphlet did it mention, hey, stop eating sugar. Not a single time. All it said was take your medications, uh, check your blood sugar once in a
Good
while.
finger stick, right?
And
Once
if
in a
the
while, huh?
medications aren't working, then you need more medications. That was it. That was it. Just listen to your doctor, poke your finger 2 or 3 times a day, and take these drugs. That was
And
it. That's what it told you.
hmm,
It didn't tell you anything about changing your diet, exercise, drink more water, go on walks. Not a word.
and you said that you were diagnosed in 2012, right?
Yes.
That's when my husband was diagnosed.
Mm.
And also, nothing. I had the knowledge from nursing experience to know a bit more than the average bear about it, but I had to do a deep dive and lots of research and talk to different doctors, and it burns me up. And here in 2023, I'm here to tell you that every day I see people. My doctor gave me metformin, lisinopril, atorvastatin, and told me check my blood sugar once or twice a week and come back and see him in 3 months. And don't eat white things. What kind of advice is that?
Don't eat white things.
You're taking medication, but you're not checking your blood sugar. They told you don't eat white things, but like, how do you know if your medication's working or if your dietary changes are working if you're not checking the blood sugar? There's a few other things, and I'm going to lay this out as best as I can for the basic, like sort of rudimentary, elementary type thing. Okay, your doctor just told you this. Here's all the stuff that they wish they could tell you and don't have time to tell you or don't have the knowledge to tell you. You can fact check everything I say with them. And in the book, I'm going to have like lots of links and QR codes for specific videos for people to watch and resources. And it's going to have a 90-day tracker so that you can track and write down what's going on with you for 90 days. And then you can take this back to your doctor and say, here. And if your doctor's worth their weight in sand, then they should be able to look at the book and then say, oh, okay, I see a pattern here.
Mm-hmm.
And then, then they can further, if they're paying attention, instruct you on how to further modify your diet, possibly change your medications, reduce the medications and whatever. So that's my work for today. I'm working on trying to wrap that up. I'm like about 80% done.
Oh, awesome. Well, I look forward to reading it.
Yeah, I think you're going to like it. I'm hoping to get it in the hands of every physician in the country that deals with diabetes people. Because so far from my reviews that I've had with my mentors and stuff, there's nothing else like it. currently available. So I think it's really going to help.
Well,
Although,
there's a lot of quackery in the diabetic. You know,
yeah.
I see constantly pills. Oh, just take this. We've found the ancient secret that was hidden deep within the jungle. It's a special fruit and a root, and they're chemically developed to end diabetes. There's so many potions and lotions and nonsense out there about, and a lot of it is just, you finally read it and it's like, oh, it's cinnamon extract. It's like, oh, okay, that's your big secret.
And cinnamon has been proven to be beneficial, but it's not like I see this all the time. And I have people in my groups and stuff that post, well, does this extract work? Does this, and then they post a link and then I read it and I'm like, oh my God, this is like the most ridiculous, like multi-level marketing scheme sales I've ever read ever. And I don't promote violence, but I want to shake these people that are doing this, because it's like, you supposedly want to help. You're not helping. You're just helping enrich your wallet.
Yeah. You're giving people false hope.
Yeah.
Them, oh, you can eat anything you want. You just take this pill and it's going to solve all your diabetic problems. It's like, it
doesn't work that way.
Yeah. It's just all snake oil.
Yeah.
And, so no, your book, I think, is it's a great idea.
I'll send you
something. I mean, the idea is, when you get first diagnosed, you're lost, and everything you read is, like I said, it's either a bunch of high in the sky nonsense, multi-level marketing garbage, or it's, oh, just take your meds and enjoy your degenerative disease. You're eventually going to, lose your eyesight. You're going to lose feelings in your hands and feet. You're probably going to cut them off, and but before that, hopefully you'll die of heart failure. I mean, that's basically your options. So to have something to walk you through, it says, hey, look, here's your problem. This is what's going on. This is what your insulin's doing, and this is what your pancreas is doing. This is what your liver's doing, and this is why this is happening. They don't explain. Because I searched and I looked for everything, and it took forever to just, because like I said, there's so much garbage out there, and trying to get through all that and all that wasted money and wasted time on potions, pills, and promises. It's just, it gets frustrating, because it's like I want to do the right thing, but
you don't know how. You don't know how.
Yeah.
And so that's what this book aims to do, is to help you get started. And it's, once again, it's, you're the person, and then you have to talk to your doctor. But in this, I'm going to, basically educate you about what this is. Like, I'm going to have like all the different types of eating plans and all that kind of stuff. And then, hey, you take this to your doctor, and you two, because you have a relationship, discuss this further. I'm just, giving you the workbook, and hopefully it'll help lots of people. I aim to save at least 1 million lives from premature death, heart attacks, strokes, amputations, kidney failure, and so on. We don't want those things to happen. And I think if more people understood on the front end that they do have the power to control this, even if they're a type 1 diabetic, even if they require insulin, you still got to have these principles in place. Yeah. Goes back to, what I was saying earlier about, what are we feeding ourselves? Not just our mouth, but our eyeballs, our ears, and everything too. And then how are we moving? And then, just put those principles into practice. And no matter where you are in the disease process, you can buy yourself some extra time and save yourself some extra heartache if you just
have an quality of life. And
exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining me. You got me out of my funk. Got me back.
I'm glad.
This
makes my day.
Yes. But no, thank you.
I hope you'll have me back on.
Oh, certainly. Certainly. When you get the book done, for sure. I'd love to go into more about it, because there's so many people out there, and like I said, there's so much just nonsense about it that just nice to have somebody come and say, look, this is what's happening to you. This is what you can do to fix it. This is how you improve your quality of life, all that stuff. And then, of course, also the mental health issue, because man, it when you get diagnosed, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's comparable to cancer, but it's very close. When you're basically just told, look, you're dying.
It's a life-altering diagnosis.
Yeah, you're this is what's going to kill you. It's just a matter of when. It really kind of sets you back, you know.
I've had it described to me as feeling like you've been hit by a truck.
That's exactly. I remember the day I got diagnosed. I kind of suspected it, and in fact, I just got through eating at a Japanese restaurant, and I went out and I got my car, and I got the phone call from my doctor, and he said, "Hey, I've run your blood and everything, your A1C, and you're diabetic. Why don't you come in tomorrow and we'll get you started on the meds and all that stuff?" And I'm like, okay. And I just sat there and cried in my car for like 20 minutes. I got home that night and I was sitting in my office and just, you just feel like your life is over. I mean, it's everything changed, everything. And you feel alone because everything you're reading is saying, hey, you're going to die a slow, painful death. And it's a horrible feeling to go through.
I'm going to go ahead and tell you that you are not alone. I'm only one person, and I'm here to tell you I've got 120,000 other people that have been or are how you felt at that point in time. You're not alone. No one else is either. I'm here to help you.
Well, that's awesome. I'm honored to get to share your story with many others.
Thank you.
So again, thank you, and everybody who's joined me today, and Joe, we really appreciate you hanging out with us. This was short notice. We just sort of threw the idea together yesterday.
Yeah.
Wasn't sure if it was going to happen this morning, but we did it. So, but thank you for joining us, everyone, and hope you have a super freaking awesome rest of your day.
Super freaking awesome day. We're going to get it done, y'all. We're going to get it done.